Have you noticed how absolutely exhausted we all are lately? Just completely burnt out by the noise, the notifications, the endless demands of the real world. Imagine, just for a second, a place where all of those physical limitations completely vanish. A place where you can be anyone, look like anyone, and actually find someone who truly understands you. In this explainer, we're not just reviewing a piece of shiny new tech or geeking out over processors. We're diving deep into a modern psychological phenomenon. We're going to explore the intense, sometimes overwhelming human loneliness that is quietly driving the greatest technological arms race of our time. We're talking about the Metaverse, spatial computing, and the multi-billion-dollar corporate battle to permanently replace the physical world right in front of your eyes.
Okay, let's dive into this because there's a story from our source material that perfectly captures the absolutely heartbreaking paradox of the age we live in. Meet two avatars, Kareem_01 and Rasha96. They meet in the Metaverse, and Kareem helps Rasha navigate this massive digital world. He's right there beside her when the system updates to give her avatar digital legs. They build this profound, deeply intimate connection. And one day, Kareem excitedly tells her he just installed a new update, and he can finally see her in flawless, breathtaking 4K resolution. But then, the illusion shatters. Rasha says she has to log off at 5 p.m. Not because she wants to, but because she lives in Dar es Salaam, and 5 p.m. is when the real world violently intrudes. It's the schedule for the rolling blackouts in her city. Their pristine, infinite digital connection is brutally severed by the crumbling physical infrastructure of reality.
And that story forces us to stop and ask a really uncomfortable question. What reality are we so desperately trying to escape? We are living through an epidemic of digital fatigue, burnout, and profound modern anxiety. And trust me, the tech giants know it. This entire battle over virtual reality, it isn't actually a hardware war. It's a corporate race to manufacture a cure for a chaotic, painful reality. They are selling us an escape hatch. But what exactly happens when that quiet, lonely escape hatch is hijacked by massive corporate ambition?
That brings us to Section 1, the corporate catastrophe, forcing the virtual office. Let's look at Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, and what happens when you completely misunderstand human psychology. Meta actually had a massive hit on their hands with the Quest 2. It was relatively cheap, it was fun, and it sold around 20 million units. People genuinely loved using it to escape, playing games, flying planes, fighting zombies, whatever. But Mark Zuckerberg decided that playing wasn't enough. Meta aggressively pivoted. They announced the Quest Pro, priced it at an insane $1,500, slapped the word professional on it, and demanded that users stop playing games and start working. They literally wanted you to strap this massive glowing box to your face, sit in your pajamas in your bedroom, and stare at an empty, silent virtual office for 8 hours a day.
The result of that pivot? Complete, absolute devastation. $14 billion. I want that to sink in. That is the staggering amount of money Meta lost in the glasses sector alone. They built an infinite, boundless metaverse for work, and literally nobody showed up. The marketing was entirely focused on professionals wearing these heavy headsets to board meetings, and the public violently rejected it. Because honestly, who wants to sit with a heavy plastic boulder on their head for 8 hours, sweating, just to look at a virtual Excel spreadsheet? And this brilliantly illustrates the cost of that miscalculation. Meta's market value absolutely plummeted. They fell from a towering $1 trillion right before the Quest Pro all the way down to a staggering $300 billion. That's a 65% crash. It proves a fundamental psychological truth. Human beings will aggressively, violently reject technology that feels forced, unnatural, and devoid of genuine human comfort. The fallout was just brutal. Meta was forced to fire 10,000 employees. That was 13% of their entire workforce gone. They slashed the price of the Quest Pro from $1,500 to $1,000 in just 4 months in a desperate bid to save the product, but sales just flatlined. Those virtual offices remained complete ghost towns. It was a historic tech disaster, which creates a massive glaring curiosity loop for us. Why on earth would another tech giant look at this smoking crater of a failure and decide to do the exact same thing just 6 months later?
Section 2, the interface revolution, Apple's $3,500 gamble. Just 6 months after Meta's multi-billion-dollar catastrophe, Apple steps onto the stage and announces the Vision Pro, another professional headset. And the price? An eye-watering $3,500. To understand this absurdity, you have to look at Apple's history of psychological dominance. See, Apple didn't invent the mouse in 1984, but they perfected it to alter human behavior forever, dragging us into 2D computing.
In 2007, they didn't invent the smartphone, but they introduced multi-touch, connecting our fingers directly to smart glass and making physical keyboards instantly extinct. And now, in 2024, with Vision OS, they are attempting to bridge our actual eyes to spatial computing.
Section 3. Hijacking the senses. When the eye becomes the mouse.
Let's slow the pacing down here for a second, because this is where the psychology gets incredibly deep. Apple isn't actually selling a $3,500 screen. They are selling a completely new way for your brain to talk to a machine. This is all about the human-machine interface, or HMI. Now, I know that sounds like dry tech jargon, but it's not. HMI is the psychological bridge determining how seamlessly your mind communicates with a digital system. This is Apple's ultimate superpower, making machines speak the language of human instinct.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer visceral difference in how we interact with these machines. Meta's solution for 3D space was controllers. You hold these plastic joysticks and wave these unnatural laser pointers around in thin air. It is frustrating and deeply exhausting. But Apple looked at that and deemed it totally inhuman. Their solution is eerie, almost telepathic eye tracking. Your eyes do the selecting, and tiny, microscopic movements of your fingers resting naturally on your lap do the clicking. It feels intimate. It feels completely effortless.
Think about it like this. You know how a mother can silence an entire room of rowdy kids with just one stern, silent look? Well, your eye look now commands the machine in that exact same way. It requires virtually zero physical movement. It completely blurs the line between your biological internal intent and a digital external action.
Section 4. The inevitable spatial future. Beyond the 650-gram helmet.
But look, we absolutely have to address the physical reality here, because no matter how magical or telepathic that eye tracking feels, your skepticism as a consumer is completely justified. You are still wearing heavy metal on your face. 650 grams. That's over half a kilo of isolating weight. For the average person, paying $3,500 for an inevitable neck ache just doesn't make sense. And honestly, Apple knows that.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because Apple isn't actually targeting you or me yet. This is just step 1 in a massive, calculated cycle of adoption. Step 1 is releasing this heavy, expensive developer hardware to force programmers to build the apps. Step 2 will be lighter, cheaper smart glasses for the general public. And step 3, companies like Mojo Vision are already testing green, experimental VR contact lenses, invisible lenses that will eventually replace physical screens entirely.
You see, the heavy headset is just a Trojan horse. In the tech life cycle, hardware is always disposable. It gets smaller, it gets lighter, and eventually it just gets thrown in a drawer. But the software, Vision OS, that is permanent. It's evolving, and it is incredibly psychologically sticky. Hardware dies, but the apps and the ecosystems that we become totally addicted to will survive right into that invisible lens generation.
And you can see the absolute panic of imitation rippling through the rest of the industry. Before the iPhone, Google's Android was literally designed to copy BlackBerry's physical keyboards. But when the iPhone launched in 2007, Android was forced into a massive pivot to multi-touch. History is repeating itself. Google had practically abandoned VR, but Apple's sudden jump has forced Google and Samsung to scramble together in a sheer panic to copy Vision OS. They know that spatial computing is the undeniable next step for humanity.
Which brings our narrative full circle, right back to the lonely avatars we started with, Kareem and Rasha. Right now, their connection is severed by the heavy friction of the real world. A power outage, a clunky headset, a massive price tag. But soon, the hardware will vanish entirely. The technology will become so seamless, so invisible, and so weightless that we will never actually want to take it off. The cinematic illusion will be all that remains.
And so, as this technology inevitably shrinks from our desks, to our hands, to our faces, and finally directly onto our eyes, we are left with a pretty haunting realization. We are furiously building a flawless digital reality precisely because our physical one is so profoundly flawed and painful. But when the illusion finally becomes completely seamless, what part of your real, messy human reality will you willingly surrender just to permanently escape?